Do you remember the chaos, the shouting, and the endless drinking in Rab C, Nesbit, 1988? It looked wild on screen, but real life went even further. By 2026, the cast has changed in ways no one expected. Some are completely unrecognizable, and some stories turned out far darker than the show itself. Stay with us, because the truth will shock you. Eric Cullen as Bernie Nesbit. Eric Cullen was born on July 12, 1965, in Scotland. At 23 years old, he played Bernie Nesbit, the youngest son in the Nesbit family, a quiet boy often overlooked in the chaos created by his father Rab in Rab C, Nesbit. His role added a fragile emotional layer to the family, showing how even the smallest member could carry the heaviest weight. But what appeared on screen was only a fraction of what he was living through. Born with achondroplasia, a form of dwarfism that limited his height to around 1.2 meters, Eric grew up facing constant bullying and isolation, and that vulnerability made him a target for far more serious abuse. From the age of 13 and continuing into his 20s, he was exploited by a violent pedophile ring, and as he began to gain recognition from acting, those same individuals returned to threaten and blackmail him, trapping him in a cycle he could not easily escape. That pressure eventually led to the most devastating turning point of his life. In 1993, he was arrested for possession of child pornography, and in 1995 he pleaded guilty to several charges after being advised that he could not withstand a prolonged trial. During the case, it was established that he had been coerced into storing the material by his abusers, but the public damage was immediate and severe. The media coverage, combined with years of trauma, pushed him into clinical depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, forcing him to leave Rab C. Nesbit in December 1993 at just 28 years old, cutting short what had been a promising career. After the case, Eric tried to rebuild his life with a clear purpose. He earned a degree in psychology and planned to specialize in helping abuse victims, while also working to expose those who had harmed him, with at least 2 of his abusers later convicted. Just days before his death, he was even offered the chance to return to Rab C. Nesbit, but he had not yet decided whether to go back to acting or continue his new path. Eric Cullen died on August 16, 1996, at the age of 31, after suffering a fatal heart attack following surgery for a twisted bowel. He was buried in Scotland, leaving behind no significant net worth, but a life story marked by extreme hardship, resilience, and a final attempt to turn personal tragedy into something that could help others. Elaine C. Smith as Mary Nesbit. Elaine C. Smith was born on August 2, 1958, in Scotland. At 30 years old, she played Mary Doll Nesbit, a strong-willed wife and mother holding her chaotic family together in Rab C. Nesbit. Her performance gave the show its emotional grounding, balancing chaos with strength and making Mary one of its most unforgettable figures. But while her role as a wife and mother appeared resilient on screen, real life demanded that same strength in a very different way. Elaine married Bob Day in 1983, and as her career grew through City Lights and later 2 Doors Down, she found herself working in a comedy scene where women were often overlooked. The pressure to prove herself in that environment did not stay confined to her career, and as her public voice grew louder, especially through her social and political involvement, it created a constant level of scrutiny that her marriage had to endure. That pressure became even more personal after a loss that changed her life permanently. Elaine's mother died from breast cancer, and it reshaped how she saw everything moving forward. The grief stayed with her, influencing not only her personal choices but also the intensity she brought into her work, from Women Talking Dirty to her stage project, I Dreamed a Dream. As of 2026, Elaine C. Smith is 68 years old and continues to work actively, especially through her role in 2 Doors Down. With an estimated net worth of around $4 million, she remains a respected figure in Scottish television, her life shaped by the ability to hold everything together as both a performer and a public figure, even when the pressure behind the scenes never truly disappeared. Shaun Scanlan as Shug. Shaun Scanlan was born on August 18, 1948, in Glasgow, Scotland. At 42 years old, he played Shug, a rough, streetwise man in Rab's circle, often seen drinking and interacting within the same working-class environment in Rab C. Nesbit. His role helped reinforce the harsh, realistic tone of the series. That role came at a time when his career had already been built steadily through theater and television. He appeared in productions such as The Tales of Parahandy, as Dougie the ship's mate, and later took on roles in 2,000 Acres of Sky, showing his range beyond supporting characters. His work was consistent rather than explosive, with regular appearances that kept him active across decades in an industry known for instability. At the center of his life was his marriage to actress Barbara Rafferty, whom he met while working on stage. Their relationship developed within the same profession, which meant both understood the pressures of acting work, including irregular schedules and constant role changes. This shared background helped sustain their marriage over many years, creating a stable personal life alongside demanding careers. That stability was broken when he was diagnosed with throat cancer. The illness progressed quickly, forcing him to step away from acting and focus on treatment. His condition developed in a short period, leaving limited time to recover or return to work, and shifting his life from routine to medical care. Shaun Scanlan died on April 17, 2017, at the age of 68. He was buried in Scotland, leaving behind his wife Barbara Rafferty and a long career in television and theater. His legacy remains tied to steady work and a career maintained over many years without interruption. Gregor Fischer as Rab C. Nesbit. Gregor Fischer was born on December 22, 1953, in Menstrie, Scotland. At 35 years old, he played Rab C. Nesbit, a jobless, heavy-drinking husband and father struggling to support his family in Rab C. Nesbit. His performance became the emotional and comedic backbone of the show, turning Rab into one of the most iconic characters in British television. But the success of that role did not bring the kind of stability people might expect, especially when it came to his personal life. Gregor Fischer married actress Victoria Burton, and although their marriage remained intact, it had to withstand the growing pressure that came with his rising fame through Rab C. Nesbit and later films like Love Actually. As his recognition increased, the gap between his public image and private reality became harder to manage, leading the couple to leave Scotland and spend time in France as an attempt to protect their relationship and rebuild a quieter life away from constant attention. That decision became more understandable when a deeply personal truth surfaced later in his life. Gregor discovered that he had been adopted, and instead of bringing clarity, it created a chain of questions that followed him relentlessly. He began searching for his biological roots while continuing to work on projects like The Merchant of Venice, and this parallel struggle slowly became part of his identity. The emotional weight of that search was not temporary, and he eventually chose to confront it publicly through his memoir, The Boy from Nowhere, where he revealed how this discovery had reshaped his entire sense of self. As of 2026, Gregor Fischer is 73 years old and continues to act, most recently appearing in Only Child. With an estimated net worth of around $5 million, he remains a familiar face on screen, but his story now stands as something deeper while quietly trying to understand his own life. Tony Roper as Jamesy Cotter. Tony Roper was born on August 19, 1941, in Scotland. At 47 years old, he played Jamesy Cotter, Rab's closest friend, a heavy drinker who spent most of his time beside him in pubs and street corners in Rab C. Nesbit. His role helped define the rhythm of the show, with Jamesy acting as Rab's constant companion in both arguments and schemes. That role came after a working-class life that shaped his writing and acting style. He worked as a miner in Fife, and later as a van boy in a Glasgow bakery, jobs that exposed him directly to the kind of people he would later portray on screen. In 1987, he wrote The Steamy, a stage play set in a Glasgow washhouse, which won a BAFTA Scotland Award and became one of the most performed Scottish plays, giving him recognition not just as an actor but as a playwright. His career continued through television and theater, including Naked Video, All Along the Watchtower, 1999, and stage productions such as Willie Ruff and The Red Runner. Alongside acting, he remained active in writing, producing works like Paddy's, set in Glasgow's Paddy's Market, and co-writing Ricky and Me in 2004 to 2005, where he portrayed comedian Ricky Fulton. This combination of writing and performing allowed him to maintain control over his work rather than depending entirely on television roles. In his personal life, Tony Roper married Isabel Roper, and they settled in Glasgow, where he gradually reduced his acting work and focused more on writing. In April 2013, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer and underwent treatment during that year. The illness required medical intervention, but he was later given the all-clear, allowing him to continue writing and making occasional appearances without returning to full-time acting. As of 2026, Tony Roper is 85 years old and lives in Glasgow, largely retired from acting and focused on his personal life and writing projects. With an estimated net worth of around $1.5 million, his career spans from the 1970s to the 2000s, combining award-winning writing with long-running television roles, while his later years are defined by recovery from illness and a gradual step back from the industry. Barbara Rafferty as Ella Cotter. Barbara Rafferty was born on January 15, 1950, in Clydebank, Scotland. At 40 years old, she played Ella Cotter, Jamesy's wife, a woman often confronting her husband's drinking and unstable behavior in Rab C. Nesbit. Her role added a clear family dynamic to the series, showing the direct impact of the men's lifestyle inside the home. That role came after several years of consistent television work, starting with Take the High Road in 1988 and continuing with Hamish Macbeth in the mid-1990s. In 2006, she appeared in The Last King of Scotland, expanding into film, and later joined River City and returned as Bernie O'Hara from 2018 to 2024. These roles show a timeline of more than 30 years of continuous work in Scottish television. Her personal life was closely tied to the same industry. She married actor Shaun Scanlan, whom she met while working on stage, and their relationship lasted until his death. They raised 2 children, including Amy Rafferty, a musician, and Bob Rafferty, a rock band frontman. Their marriage lasted over 3 decades, during which both remained active in acting, often working in overlapping theater and television circles. In 2017, Shaun Scanlan died on April 17th at the age of 68 after being diagnosed with throat cancer. The illness progressed within a short period, forcing him to stop working during treatment. His death ended a marriage that had lasted more than 30 years, and from that point, Barbara continued her career alone while maintaining her role in River City and later projects. As of 2026, Barbara Rafferty is 76 years old and has reduced her acting workload after her final appearances in River City in 2024. With an estimated net worth of around $1 million, her career spans from 1988 to 2024, covering more than 3 decades of television, while her personal life remains defined by a long marriage that ended with her husband's death. Andrew Fairley as Gash Nesbit. Andrew Fairley was born in 1963 in Broxburn, West Lothian, Scotland. At around 25 years old, he played Gash Nesbit, the rebellious eldest son of Rab and Mary, frequently arguing with his father and struggling inside a chaotic family in Rab C. Nesbit. His role showed clearly how a father's behavior could shape his own child. That role came during a period when he was actively building his career, appearing not only in Rab C. Nesbit, but also in television series like Taggart and later The Tales of Parahandy, where he played Sonny Jim. At that stage, he had a clear path forward, moving between television roles and establishing himself as a recognizable face in Scottish drama, with enough momentum to continue if he chose to stay in the industry. But that trajectory changed after the original run of Rab C. Nesbit ended in 1999. Instead of continuing, he stopped acting almost completely for nearly 9 years, only returning briefly for the 2008 Christmas special. This gap was significant because it happened at a time when actors usually expand their careers, and when the show returned for new seasons, he was replaced by Ian Robertson, marking a clear end to his role in the series. That period also overlapped with a personal loss that reinforced his decision to step away. In September 2008, his younger sister Rosalind died of cancer at the age of 42, a moment that deeply affected him. The timing of her death, coming the same year he briefly returned to television, created a clear turning point, after which he chose not to continue acting, shifting his focus entirely away from the industry. As of 2026, Andrew Fairley is 63 years old and lives a private life in Scotland, no longer working in acting. His story left a visible career at a critical moment and choosing a quieter life after both professional change and personal loss shaped his path. Brian Pettifer as Andra. Brian Pettifer was born on January 1, 1953, in Durban, South Africa. At 35 years old, he played Andra, one of the regular men at the bar, often drinking alongside Rab and Jamesy and reacting to their reckless choices in Rab C. Nesbit. His role helped complete the tight circle of working-class characters that defined the series. However, his path into acting did not follow a straight plan for years to take that role. He first considered becoming a photographer, yet early appearances in television dramas such as Dr. Finley's Casebook and later his film debut in If, 1968, shifted his direction completely. From there, he built a career step by step, returning to work with director Lindsay Anderson in Oh Lucky Man and Britannia Hospital, then moving into larger productions like Amadeus, 1984, where he proved he could hold his own in serious historical drama. As his career developed, he avoided chasing fame and focused on consistent work across film, television, and theater. He appeared in projects such as Vanity Fair, 2004, Lassie, 2005, and later, The Musketeers, taking roles that kept him active rather than waiting for a breakthrough that might never come. This approach demanded discipline, as each role carried equal importance in maintaining a steady career over decades. Away from the screen, Brian Pettifer built a private life with his wife Claire Brady, whom he married on January 29, 1977. Their marriage remained largely out of public attention, reflecting the same steady approach he applied to his career. Instead of public controversy, his life was shaped by routine work, long-term commitment, and the ability to continue adapting to an industry that constantly changed. As of 2026, Brian Pettifer is 73 years old and remains respected as a veteran actor, though he keeps a low profile. With an estimated net worth of around $800,000, his story stands as a clear example of longevity built through consistency, where success was measured not by headlines, but by the ability to remain present in the industry across more than 5 decades. Ian Robertson as Gash Nesbit. Ian Robertson was born on May 27, 1981, in Glasgow, Scotland. At 15 years old, he played Gash Nesbit, the troubled teenage son of Rab and Mary, often clashing with his father and growing up inside a chaotic working-class family in Rab C. Nesbit. His portrayal brought a younger, sharper edge to Gash, showing how deeply a father's behavior could shape his own son. But that role did not come from privilege. It came from a very specific upbringing that pushed him forward. Growing up in a crowded tenement in Govan with a family of 7, Robertson did not initially plan to become an actor until a teacher recognized his talent and pushed him toward drama. By age 12, he had already earned a scholarship to the Sylvia Young Theatre School in London, and just a few years later, he was cast as the lead in Small Faces, a breakthrough that quickly moved him into serious acting opportunities. That early momentum carried him into international projects, including Band of Brothers produced by Steven Spielberg, and later roles in Basic Instinct 2 and Sea of Souls. At this stage, his career followed a clear trajectory, from a teenage television actor into a working adult performer who could move between film, television, and theater. However, maintaining that level of progression required constant visibility, and the industry did not always offer consistent roles, forcing him to adapt and take varied projects to stay active. The turning point came not from his career, but from his personal life. In 2009, his marriage to Judith Milne ended after 3 years, marking a period of instability that followed earlier public attention in 2004, when he faced an assault accusation, a case that ended in acquittal but still affected his public image. Years later, in 2025, his situation escalated significantly when he was formally charged with rape and multiple related offenses involving several women, with a trial scheduled for June 2026, shifting the narrative of his life from career to legal crisis. As of 2026, Ian Robertson is 45 years old and remains largely out of the spotlight while his case awaits trial. His life is defined less by acting and more by the outcome of ongoing legal proceedings, marking a sharp contrast to the early promise that once defined his path. John Kazek as Nori. John Kazek was born in 1963 in Glasgow, Scotland. At around 25 years old, he appeared as Nori, a local man who moved in the same pub circles as Rab and Jamesy and Rab C Nesbit, often seen in bar scenes and everyday street interactions. This role placed him directly inside the show's working-class environment, where relationships were built through repeated encounters rather than major plot lines. From that foundation, he moved into film with roles that had clear functions within each story. In 1991, he played Robert in Riff Raff, a construction worker dealing with unstable working conditions, continuing his portrayal of grounded, working-class men. By 2005, he appeared in Batman Begins as Doc Thug No. 2, a member of a criminal gang at the docks, marking his shift from independent films to a major international production. That progression carried into television with roles tied closely to the main narrative. In Titanic, 2012, he played Steward Turnbull across 4 episodes, a crew member directly involved in the ship's daily operations leading up to the disaster. Later, in Shetland, 2019, he portrayed Paul Kiernan/Aaron Maguire in 6 episodes, becoming part of a central investigation that unfolded across the series rather than appearing briefly. Alongside his screen work, he maintained a strong presence in theater, performing at major venues such as the Royal Lyceum Theatre and the National Theatre of Scotland in productions like Macbeth and The Cherry Orchard. This continuous movement between stage and screen created a clear, connected path in his career, where each role built naturally on the last. As of 2026, John Kazek is 63 years old and continues working as an actor. With an estimated net worth of around $500,000, his career reflects long-term consistency, with each role forming part of a steady progression rather than isolated appearances. David McGowan as Gavin Acton. David McGowan was born on June 16, 1981, in Milton, Ontario, Canada. At 33 years old, he played Gavin Acton, a young working-class man who appears as a friend and acquaintance within the Nesbit family's social circle in Rab C Nesbit, often seen in the same pub environment as Rab and Jamesy. Standing at 1.85 meters, he brought a grounded, realistic presence to these street-level interactions. From that foundation, his career moved into larger and more structured productions. In Outlander, 2014, he appeared as a British soldier, shifting from casual street interactions to disciplined military scenes tied to historical conflict. That transition continued in Trust Me, 2017, where he took on a hospital-based role, working within a medical setting that revolved around identity and trust. By 2018, in Wild Rose, he was part of a contemporary story centered on a singer's life, contributing to scenes connected to the music industry and personal ambition. Each of these roles followed a clear progression, from local, grounded characters in a sitcom to more defined roles within historical, medical, and modern drama settings. Instead of repeating the same type of role, his work moved through different environments: pub life, battlefield structure, hospital systems, and the music world, creating a continuous path where each project built on the last in terms of scale and context. As of 2026, David McGowan is 45 years old and continues working in film and television. With an estimated net worth of around $200,000, his career reflects a steady progression across genres, where each role connects logically to the next, rather than standing as isolated appearances. Elaine M. Ellis as Natalie Nesbit. Elaine Mackenzie Ellis was born in 1966 in Scotland. She was 21 years old when she played Natalie Nesbit, the daughter in the Nesbit family, in Rab C. Nesbit during the early 1990s. In this role, she was positioned directly within the family unit, interacting with Rab as the father and Mary as the mother, making her part of the central household rather than an occasional character. Her work then extended into film and television, with defined supporting roles tied to specific story settings. In Dear Frankie, 2004, she appeared within a small coastal community storyline, while in Sunshine on Leith, 2013, she contributed both on screen and vocally, with her voice featured on the soundtrack in the song Should Have Been Loved. She also appeared as a nurse in Still Game, placing her in a medical setting within the story, and later took part in Irvine Welsh's Crime 2, continuing her work in Scottish drama productions. Alongside screen roles, she remained active in theater, performing in productions such as Cinderella at the King's Theatre and The Twits at the Citizens Theatre in Glasgow. From November 2023 to January 2024, she appeared in Treasure Island at the Pavilion Theatre, playing Sealeg Senga and Brenda Gunn, showing her continued presence on stage into recent years. As of 2026, Elaine M. Ellis is 60 years old and stopping working in theater and television in Scotland. With an estimated net worth of around $500,000, her career follows a clear progression from young family roles to adult characters across children's television, film, and stage productions. Decades after Rab C. Nesbit, 1988, first aired, the cast have taken very different paths. Seeing them now in 2026, it's hard to believe they're the same faces from those chaotic Glasgow streets. Which transformation shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more then and now stories just like this.